shall we move on?
Yeah. Shall we go to the workplace? Gender pay gap, anyone?
Oh no, not paternity. Yes, let's do it.
So, 11.9% is the clumsiest estimate for the gender pay gap in 2019. I found that in the Financial Times. Obviously, that accounts for, just how much all men and women earn. And they actually called it a pay gap. This has been kind of poked this issue until even feminists will admit that this is an earnings gap, not a pay gap. But they actually called it the pay gap, and it was the Financial Times, which I thought was highly retarded. But the gap grows with age. With some years, as Hat said earlier, showing a negative gap for young men.
Oh, great.
Which is just more equality, right?
Oh yeah, it's. I think Jessica Valenti wrote in Feministing. She said, young women are out earning men in their 20s. Here's why it's not sexist. Because, and it always comes back to the same argument. For a million billion years, men oppressed us. So if we oppress them, it's not a bad thing, etc., etc.
Yeah. Obviously, women out earning men is not oppression. It's just
it's redistributing the wealth.
Yes. Oh, ha 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 ha. Funny.
But yeah, the fact is, men work longer hours than women, and when you factor that in, it essentially disappears. And at that point you can start bringing in the other factors, like them choosing different roles, that have different pay scales, then because men and women have different priorities, and a lot of that is to do with mate selection. And so men do like high earning men, and for that reason men like to be high earning a lot of the time.
What?
Like prioritize family and interests and socializing rather than throwing all of their efforts into the workplace.
Do you know what might help the wage gap or the earnings gap? If men refuse to put up with women until they earn enough. If men start being hypergamous, maybe women will actually put in the work, because that's what's made. That's why men are so driven to earn, because it attracts women. So yes. If men tried hypergamy, if men tried hypergamy for a week, women would be out on marches protesting that this was unreasonable, to force them to bully them into doing so much extra work.
Well, actually, that's called hypogamy, when men marry up, and it is a growing phenomenon because there are so many women earning more. So it is kind of happening, to be perfectly honest.
But are men?
I think that might be our savior in many regards, because I think once women earn the same or more as men in divorce cases, and I know we're going to talk about that later, as soon as more women have to pay in divorce cases, they will immediately. They're like, oh, let's change the laws. So I think that's going to work in our favor. Yeah.
Can I just ask, Liz, is when men are marrying up, is that deliberate, or is it just because women are earning more? Like, as in, are they seeking women out?
No, it's because women are earning more, but on the kind of less good side of things, those marriages are less stable.
Okay. Yeah.
And hypergamous marriages, or equal earner. Most couples actually earn the same amount.
Yeah.
I know it used to really flummox me why anybody would believe that men would endorse a wage gap, because that's half of the household's income. You know, if she's being underpaid, then they're both being underpaid. You know, like there's no point where men said, well, we can't afford to go to Barbados, but hey, at least I earn more than you.
The other thing we can do to kind of mitigate the wage gap is to give men, you know, equal, non-transferable paternity leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't expect that to, you know, I wouldn't expect for men to take it up at the same rate as women because, you know, according to Catherine Hakim, is it 3 or 4 in 10? I think it's 4 in 10 men are work-centered as compared to 1 in 10 women. And, you know, even though you get, you know, paid at whatever rate you do during the paternity leave or the maternity leave, you are going to be, you know, pushed back by taking that gap from work. So your career kind of trajectory is going to suffer. But, you know, I do think that men should be able to do that. And, you know, I won't spoiler the kind of fatherhood discussion, which we'll come on to later. But, you know, it's important that men do have the freedom to spend more time at home with their families.
I mean, yeah, no, I completely agree. With regards to the earnings gap, I put a tweet at one point that it was basing on the kind of generic one that gets said around. I'm sure it's false, but the 77 cents on the dollar, you know, that's the kind of popular one. You know, so I said that because the wage gap is actually an earnings gap, rather than for every dollar a man earns, a woman earns 77 cents, it's more like for every hour a man works, a woman works 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
You know, it's the same question kind of thing as the question of women in positions of power and why aren't there more female MPs and CEOs and stuff like that. And, you know, my response is like, women are too sane.
Exactly. Exactly.
Horrendous. And let's be honest, the vast majority of men are not willing or able to be an MP or a CEO.
I would never do it. I would never want to do it. And that's exactly, thank you for saying that, because I mean, I'm a man. Between my 20th and 30th year, there were times where I barely survived. I made like, and I'm not exaggerating, I made like 40 euro a week, only ate spaghetti, and I was fine with it. And now I make more money because I'm older and I want a family and stuff like that. But I don't measure my happiness with how much money I make. And I don't understand why the feminist movement is so obsessed with power and money. Because it's like, do you care about women's happiness? Because you never talk about the fact that women's happiness is going downhill. You only talk about making more money and having more power, but power and happiness do not go hand in hand. If you really care about women, ask women what they want and ask them, are you happy? No, because at the moment, women are not happy at the moment because they have to juggle the job, the children, the pressure of, oh, I have to have a good career because otherwise I'm not a good woman. And I have to be a good mother because otherwise I'm not a good woman. It's so many pressures at the moment. Just relax. Just ask women, what do you want to do? Find a man who can support you with that. And for the man, find a woman who can support you with what you want. That's how it used to be. I mean, I know there were times when there were a lot of pressures on men and on women, and I don't want that back. I want choices, but then let people make choices. If these choices mean women want to do more social work and stuff like that and earn a little bit more, that's wonderful for it. Like it just ask them, are you happy?
I mean, I completely agree, Philip, that in our gender studies course, actually, the lecturer put out a list of jobs and their earnings, and was talking about, you know, how many female in them. And she discussed the STEM fields, obviously, and she went on to discuss fields that a social science degree would allow you to move in. So, like, for example, you know, psychiatry or psychology. And she said, you know, the truth is you won't make as much money with a social science degree, but you will be happier. You know, and it's like, well, there you go. Like, you're justifying exactly what the wage gap is, which is women choosing things that make them happy, not that make them rich. And also that men, when they earn, you know, X amount of money, they share it with their wives, they share it with their families. But like, for as much as we might say, you know, how many men are in a boardroom compared to women, well, how many of those? Well, how many of those men are married? You know, how many of those men's wives are controlling 60 to 80% of that household spending? You know, like, see, Jeff Bezos, who invented Amazon, he is the richest man in the world. And Mackenzie Scott is the third richest woman in the world. And she's the third richest woman in the world because she married Jeff Bezos. You know, it's like, men want to share their money with women. They don't hoard it to themselves and keep their wife in the kennel.
Well, in divorce cases, men don't want to give their money to.
Well, I did say they want to share it with their wives. I didn't say they want to share it with their ex-wives.
That's very good.